that how do we create a page object model framework. So newcomers, whoever are over here, for them, just try to see like how do we create a page object model framework in our session using a TypeScript. If you're not understanding, that is also fine. But if you're able to understand or able to follow the things, that is well and good. If you're not understanding, it is also fine. Anyways, we'll be covering up in our session as well. But this is again to just see like how do we create a framework over here. Now, in our previous session, we talked about generally what is page object model, how do we create it completely from scratch, what are different layers that are available inside whenever we go for creation of a framework, and how do we create those layers? What is the advantage of going to or like going for a framework design, framework creation, framework implementation, along with different layers, which is page layer, where we have discussed that page layer will be something that we can create a pages as a folder inside our Playwright framework, and inside that pages we can create some of the classes by name, whatever uh, you have inside your application. So whatever the screens that are available inside your application, that we can create it over here with the name. So example, if we talk about the thing that we are checking over here, this is for the login page. So I've just given a login page.ts. When you go move to the next page, which is like let's say dashboard page or home page, we can give the name something which is dashboard page.ts or .js, whatever language that we are trying to use, either JavaScript or TypeScript. Okay, this is one layer, which is the page layer. Now, second layer used to be a test layer, which we do not have to create any such layers because we already have a defined and standard one, which is available as a test layer. And inside this test layer itself, we'll be writing all the test cases that we have to write in general in terms of Playwright inside the test layer. So this it by default comes along with the installation of Playwright. Third layer that we have is a test data layer where we can manage our data, whatever the data that we have to require that we'll basically we require in terms of working with test automation, that we can place it inside the test data layer. So for that, we can create another layer in this case, which will give the name as, let's say, test data. This is a test data layer. Inside this, we can store all the data related to our test cases. So what is the data related to test case? Example, file upload, or example, let's say, uh, login credentials that you can use. You can take the help of JSON file, or you can take the help of Excel, or we can also create a class inside that we can store it as a constant. Okay, so third layer is a test data layer. Fourth layer, as we discussed, we can also create utils. Inside that utils, we can create some of the utility functions or utility methods, which will be helpful for us in terms of performing some kind of actions, right? So as the advantage that we have in terms of Playwright is Playwright will automatically be able to take this screenshot, and Playwright will also be able to generate the video recording along with the scroll down on the page. So we do not have to generally write any generic functions or any generic method. But even if you would like to write like some functions for taking the screenshot on the page, scrolling down inside the application and so on, if you are looking for those kind of things in terms of writing the customized method, that we can also write it inside the utils. Now, when you work with API, earlier we have seen like how do we skip the login page by also utilizing the help or taking the help of API, which Playwright also supports like API automation. So by using those things as well, we'll be able to, we can basically write the locators. We can generally write the locators to, um, we can generally write the utility functions to utilize wherever we can use it inside our function. Just give me a minute. Just give me 30 seconds. Team. Okay. So that will be the utility layers. Generally happen is like whenever you work with any other tools and technology, like let's say Selenium, we have to also generate the log4j. That means log file by default. We also have to generate the log file. So what do is we create a generic functions on top of the methods that Selenium has given, and inside that we can use some logging over there. Whatever the log file that we have to generate, those steps we can generate it. That is where we generally creates a elements utilities file. Inside that element utilities file, we can write the steps to generate log file, whatever steps that we have to provide it inside the log file, plus inside the reporting that we can write it over there. But we also know that the Playwright will also be able to generate the log file automatically along with the report as well. So we do not require those things again to be created inside our test automation. But if you want to also create any utilities file or utility functions, we can create it inside by creating one utils as a package, which is known as either a package or a folder inside this. So what we have created a page layer, which is pages. We have a test layer, which is where we'll be writing a test class. We also have a test data layer where we'll be storing the test data. And we have a utils where you can write some utility functions and method that can be utilized across the pages or across the test classes and test pages over there. Okay. So in this case, we'll see like how do we generate the or how do we basically go and define the test cases over here. So first thing that we have to do is to go through this, and as we have some pages that we have created, so we'll start writing the test cases for login page. Okay, now let's start writing the test case for login page. But before that, we have to create a class over here. Okay? So we have given the name of a class is login page.ts. For others is we have dashboard page. So we can simply create a class, and inside this class, as it is a page layer, so we have to write the locators and methods. That means actions that we need to perform in terms of a test automation for that specific page. Which one is the login page? What do we perform on the login page? Validation of, let's say, valid scenario, invalid scenario, and you can also perform like registration, forget password, and so on, right? But generally, what do we perform is we perform a login check for a valid scenario and invalid scenario. Like general scenarios used to be in terms of writing the test automation is a valid scenario and invalid scenario, right? So those two things we can write as an action over here, which is like performing or validation of a login page or validation of a login functionality using valid credential and invalid credential, right? So we have to create a class. Inside this class, inside the page layer, generally we'll be writing the locators and methods. What is method? The actions that will be performing. Methods related to that particular class, whichever we are, that particular page, whichever page that we are trying to use it over here. In this case, it is for a login. So locators and method related to the login page over here will be writing. I hope few of you should have understanding, or whoever is from other batch should be having a knowledge that how do we create a class over here in TypeScript and JavaScript. So for that, we have to start it with a class as a keyword. We have to provide a class as a keyword over here. And then we have to say it, whatever the name of the class that you have given as the file name over here, which is login page. Class is a keyword which helps us in creating a class inside the JavaScript and TypeScript. And login page that we have given over here is the name of the class that we are trying to create. Okay. Now inside this class, we'll be first writing allocators, and second, we'll be writing a methods related to the same page, whichever class or whichever page that we are trying to create over here. Here we are going through with login page, so we'll be writing locators related to login page. Now, locators is something which is a properties of a class, right? Properties can be properties is equal to the variable, however we declare a variable inside a class. Okay, so in this case, if you refer our earlier session for the E2E automation, so what generally we have to do is we have to fill the username, we have to fill the password, and we also have to click on the login button over here, right? So those locators we have to write it, and then we also have to write a locator for clicking on login button. Now, why do we write locator? To identify the element on the web page, right? So in this case, we'll first declare few of the variable. You should be aware of how do we create a class, how do we declare a variable inside the classes. Few of you, others do not worry. We'll discuss again in our session. So here we can declare a variable. If you think that some of the variable that you are trying to create, let's say for example, username, you can provide it a username, and this username should accept a value as a locator over here. That means this is the data type that we are trying to provide for a username as a variable. And we know that TypeScript allows us to also provide the data type of a variable that we are trying to use. Okay, so what we are trying to do over here is we are just trying to say that trying to create a variable which is a username which should have a value as a locator. Locator we can write for a user. But let's say if you think that this username you will not be using inside any other classes or any other pages going forward. So if you think that this particular variable that you have is only specific to this login page class itself, then you can also create it as a private variable. By using a keyword known as private, will make the variable as a private. Private means you will not be able to access it outside of this particular class. Okay. Now, when we talk about other things, other validation of the things that we have is, again, we'll be declaring a variable which will store a password over here. What are the things that we require? A username, a password, and then login button over here. Right? We also require a login button, and depending on the value that you see over here, or depending on whatever the action that you are trying to perform, you can also perform some kind of actions. Let's say clicking on an element, or let's say if you have given a wrong locator, right? Let's say if you have given a wrong credential, then we can also get the value which is like it should throw us an error inside the as a part of the test automation, right? So whenever you provide, let's say, password as a wrong or username as a wrong, what it will happen over here? So let's say I'm trying to provide some username along with a credential which is valid. It will take us to the log dashboard page. But if you provide over here something which is invalid, then it will throw us an error saying that it is having an incorrect email or password. Okay, so that validation, again, we have to write it inside this pages that we are trying to create. So what are the locators that we require? One is username, other is password, and the third one that we require is login button as well, which will again it will be in the form of locator. And then we also require an error message. Whenever it generates an error message, that we also have to write the locator. And fifth one will be whenever you move to the dashboard page, that will also allow you to, that will also basically have to validate whether you have moved into the dashboard page or not. Right? Just for the sake of validation that the login happened successfully. Okay, so whenever you provide any invalid scenario, invalid credential, it will throw us an error over here, so that we can again try to identify as a locator, which will be this one. This is the email address that this is the value that it displays over here, and that will be displayed inside the toast container over here. This is an ID which will, if you see over here, it is identifying the elements which displays as an error message. Right? So we also have to write a locator which will be for the error message. And when we are trying to use an error message over here, that means, let's say, I'll just say it as error message, whatever the error message that it is trying to declare. Now, why do we use error message over here? Because we have to make it as a, we have to write some assertions, some validation that whenever um, whenever it is throwing us an error, or whenever it is basically you are providing username or credential as incorrect and click on a login button, it should throw us an error. Should throw us an error means, that means we have to validate that whether a functionality is throwing error or not. Right? Okay, so that means it should have to throw us an error. So we have to write an assertion. And as per the concept of the page object model, we have to write the assertion inside the test layer. Test layer will consist of the pure test cases and the assertion. We should not be writing the assertion inside the page layer. Inside the page classes, we should not be combining it with the steps. That means the locators, methods, and we should not be writing the assertion over there. The assertion and test cases will be written inside the test layer itself. So this will be an error message. Let's say I have given some name over here, but why did not I declare private? Because we'll be using this error message inside the test layer. So let's say I'll create one test class over here, which I'll give the name as login page test dot spec dot ts. So inside this class, we'll be utilizing this variable that we have used. Inside this class, we'll be using this variable that we have to use over here. Okay. Now, just give me a minute. Few people are trying to join, but they are not able to. Just give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Praveen. Like first 15 to 20 minutes, it didn't allow us to join for some reason. We just joined now.
Okay, okay. I'm just checking it out. I got few messages. I'm just trying to check it out. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started. I believe like people have joined and they'll be joining us. Okay, so we have not given a private variable over here just because
Praveen, sorry to interrupt. Okay, may I just know what are we covering today? At least just for overview, because I missed the
we
first
are
15 to 20.
right. We are covering over here a page object model framework designing part, a framework designing part inside the Playwright.
Okay.
Okay, like just stay in the session. Try to understand. If you're not, that is also okay. We'll go through again in our session as well in detail. But let's try to see how do we do it in terms of the Playwright.
I have a question. Yesterday, as we spoke on it, this is for the JavaScript, correct? JavaScript Playwright. But today I see it is TypeScript. Ravi.
We'll go through with the JavaScript as well. Do not worry for that.
Okay.
Okay. We'll be covering both over here.
But what ID is this? Like, I mean, I think
Visual
this,
Studio Code.
yeah, so this is like our first class and we're directly jumping into coding without even knowing what ID are we writing and what do we have to install to practice. So it's a little
You'll come to
confusing.
know. It's just for you people. It's just a demo session. Okay. So do not worry for that. We'll be starting our real session in a few days. There you'll come to know what you have to install and all. Everything will go in a detailed manner. We are just in a demo session, so we are just trying to jump on here and there. But do not worry, you'll be covering all the installation, prerequisite, and other things when we basically start our first real session.
Okay.
Okay. So what we are basically trying to do inside the page classes over here is to write the locators, some of the locators, and the methods related to the same page or same class that we are trying to create it over here. In this case, we're following a login. So in general, in terms of a login, we require a username, we require a password, we also require a login button as per our application over here, and then we require a couple of other validation, which is error message whenever you provide some kind of value, and then when it is basically a successful, if you have given this correct username and password at that point of time, it has to take us to the dashboard page. So for that dashboard page also, we'll have to write a locator, which I'll say it as, let's say, a home page identifier, which will help us in identifying or validating whether the login is success or not. Okay, so that we'll again see it over here as a part of the locators. Now, when we talk about classes, we also have to create a constructor over here. What is the use of a constructor? Constructor will generally help us in initialization of a value of a variable, value for the variable. So whatever the variable that we have declared over here, these variables, we can initialize it inside the constructor. Initialization is providing the value of the variable. Okay. And how do we create a constructor in terms of both JavaScript and TypeScript is by using a keyword known as constructor. And as we have gone through earlier as well, it is entirely different than we create a Java constructor and so on. In JavaScript and TypeScript, in both JavaScript and TypeScript, we have a keyword known as constructor, which will help us in create the constructor inside the classes. And this constructor will automatically get invoked. That means this constructor is a function which will automatically get called when we try to create an object for this particular class. Whenever you try to create an object for this class, the constructor will automatically get invoked. That means this function will get called automatically, and whatever the value that we'll be providing inside the constructor will also get initialized for the variable. Second, at the time of classes, we have discussed that. Second, we also have discussed that whenever we try to declare or whenever we try to assign any value to the variable, whenever we try to assign any value to the variable, it will help us in, it will basically be assigned over here by using a this keyword, right? You have understood earlier that we have to use a this keyword to assign the value of a variable. That means we have to call the variable by using a this keyword. This keyword refers to an object of a class, right? So whenever we create an object, that object will be replaced over here for the this keyword. Wherever we create a class, this login page object we can create inside the login page test. Login page object we can create inside dashboard page. So wherever we create an object, that object will come and sit in place of this over here. That means it will simply initialize the value of the variable over there. So whatever the variable that we have created over here, which is property, we have to call it by using this dot username. Okay, this dot username. And what we have to store inside a username, we have said that this is a locator over here. We have said that this is a locator. That means we have to store the locator value over here. What is locator? Something that we write to as identify the elements on the web page, right? And how do we write a locator? Anyone over here from our batch earlier? I believe a few people are over here, Kailash. Right. So page dot locator will be writing a locator over here. But where is this page coming from? How do we call this page? We'll be writing a page dot locator, or let's say we'll simply copy it from the other session that we have written, which is page dot get by placeholder for this particular element. But how do we get this page over here? Where this page will come from? This page, generally we see it inside the test layer. Inside the test
We have to
classes,
create a base page within the page folder and import that into our page classes.
okay. So that is one option. Second is whenever you create any test classes, what do we generally do is we'll be importing test and expect function. And inside the test function, let's say I'll just say it as valid login scenario. And inside this, we'll also be creating an asynchronous function, which will help us in providing the page fixture over here, right? So generally, whenever we try to create any test cases, we take the help of a page fixture that are available inside Playwright, right? And this page fixture will help us in whatever the locator or whatever the operation that we are trying to do will be helpful for us. But where is this page coming from? How do we get this page from? Even if you create a base page, how will you get the page over there, right? Even let's say if you are creating a base page, how will you initialize that? Will you be directly importing it from the page from the Playwright? So for that, what we can do is we can create a variable over here, which I'll give name as, let's say, page, which will uh, basically take the page over here, which is coming from the Playwright. Okay, so we have imported locator, which will be for these variables that we are trying to assign the locator. And second is a page that we are also importing from Playwright. And this page we can take as a parameter inside the constructor over here. Take as a parameter inside the constructor over here. Now what will happen whenever you try to create an object for a login page? And as per the concept, whatever the parameter or arguments that we have provided inside the constructor, that will basically be passed as parameter at the time of creation of an object, right? So whenever you try to create an object for login page, let's say you have this test case that you have written over here, and how do we create a login page classes? Just by saying, let's say, const, which is variable over here as a login page, and then by using new keyword, we can create an object over here. So here, when you create an object, it also requires a parameter that you have given inside the constructor. Whatever the constructor that we have created over here, we are trying to provide the page fixture, the argument as a page, which will be referred as over here as a page. So whenever we create an object, this page we can try to provide as a parameter inside the object. Now what will happen? Whenever we start execution of this test case, it will check that, okay, we have a login page object. So it will go to the login page. And inside the constructor, whatever we have written, first it will initialize those values. So in this case, we can simply use this dot page equals to page. Now what happens over here is this variable that we have created over here, we have assigned it with this dot page equals to the page parameter that we have accepted over here as an argument inside the constructor. And wherever you create an object for this, you have to necessarily provide the page fixture that we are trying to use it inside the test case. Okay.
It's a bit confusing. Can you please explain once again?
Right. So what is happening over here is we have created a variable. So generally we require a page to be utilized for creation of an locator, right? So
Yeah.
generally we take the help of a page to create a locator, which will identify the element on the web page. Now we have to inside the page class, we have to get the page so that we'll be able to create the locator. Now, how do we get this page? Generally, if we have seen in other sessions that whenever we write the test cases inside the test function, we take the help of page fixture, which will help us in performing certain actions, right? And inside the constructor, we can take the page variable over here, which is as a page fixture again, which is a part of the page, which is again coming from the Playwright over here. And that we are initializing saying this dot page equals to page. So this dot page is the variable that we have defined over here. And this page is the page that we have taken as an argument. And this page will be coming from wherever you create an object for a login page over here. So inside this login page, whenever we try to create an object, as we have given a parameter or argument inside the constructor, so at the time of creation of an object, this login page will require a parameter to be provided inside the login page, right? And that parameter, we are passing it over here as a page fixture. What happens is, as soon as we start running the test case, this will check, okay, we have an object. So whatever the object that we have created for a login page, it will go and initialize whatever the value that we have inside the constructor first. So here we have created this dot page as a variable name. So first this will get assigned with a value as a page, which is coming from the test class over here. Okay. So the test class page fixture will assign the value as a page, and this will be a similar page that we have taken it from the page, like page fixture from the Playwright. Here it will come and assign the value, which will sit in the place of this page. And here in this case, now our variable, which we have defined it with this dot page, which is this one, becomes the complete page that we have over here, that we basically use it inside the test class. So generally, how do we create this? By saying page dot, let's say, get by placeholder, right? And this is able to identify that we are trying to create a locator. In the same way, to create a locator over here, we also have to get the page picture. And where do we get this page picture from? That we'll be getting it from the test layer inside the test class. Okay. And from here, whenever you create an object, we are passing this page picture as a parameter so that it will go and set it like initialize the page value that we have given over here, page variable that we have created over here. Still confusion?
No.
Praveen, can you please explain the line number 9, the page colon page? Again, is that coming under the page fixture concept?
Exactly. This we have declared a variable with the name as page, and we have said that the data type of page is a page picture that we are trying to get from Playwright.
Okay, so is there a necessary we have to define the variable in the name of page, or can we declare in some different name to avoid the confusion?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You can also declare some name as well. Let's say you can say it as other things, which is, let's say, test. Okay, and that you can assign it, but that page used to be the standard one, so that is where I was trying to use a page. So you can use any other variable, but that should be the data type of a page fixture that we are trying to use.
So what the variable is holding, whether the variable test is holding the page fixture, and
Yes.
you in the line number 17 you made an assignment, this dot test equal to page, and from this dot username equal to this dot test. Okay, that's fine.
So I'll
Yeah.
come. Yeah, so this is a variable that you have declared, which is having a data type as a page fixture. You also have to assign this value. This is completely empty right now, right? You have not given any value over here. So you have to also assign the value for this variable. And that assignment, we are trying to do it inside the constructor by taking it as a parameter. And this parameter will be called at the time of creation of an object, which is inside the test layer, inside the test class. And inside the test class, we are also taking a page over here as a fixture, which you can see it is a part of the page itself. And that we are providing over here as a parameter. So whenever we call this, this will go to the login page. First, it will initialize whatever the page fixture that you have created over here, either in the name of test or page, that will get initialized over here. Okay.
Yeah.
All good till now?
Yeah, yes.
Chandan?
Yeah, Praveen.
Others?
Can you explain line number? Hello, Praveen?
Yes, yes.
Can you explain line number 13 and 14?
Line number 13 and 14 is also a variable that we have declared. One is for error message and second is for home page. Now, why do we have not given a private is because these variables or locators will be utilizing inside other classes for the assertion purpose, validation purpose. So we have not given a.
Yeah, the naming convention of error message is customized. It is not defined, right?
It has not defined. We'll define it inside the constructor.
Okay, fine, thanks.
We have not completed yet the constructor part. Okay. Now let's go over here, which is for the again
Praveen, I'm
password.
just wondering if we take that approach of creating base page and then importing that into the every page that we're creating.
Same thing we'll have to do over there as well.
But there we don't have to every time create the constructor, right? We can
Then you
create
have to
constructor
call
once in the base page and import
and
that.
you have to call every time inside the constructor of the pages.
No, we can extend it to the base page and that will take the property of the constructor, right?
But you also have to
There is no,
initialize those.
I think there is
How
no
will
instance
yeah.
concept in JavaScript, right? That's only in
No,
Java.
we have extend concept. We have which we have seen like in the term in at the time of inheritance. We do have, but Chandan, okay, let me show you that as well. So let's say you create a base page over here. Example, I'm just trying to create for the see. I'll just see it as let's say a base page. Okay, and inside this create a constructor which will take a page over here. So we have to also declare a page in this case, which is like let's say page will be coming from this, and then you will say it as this dot page equals to page. Right?
Yes, correct.
Now you extend this inside the base page. Extend this base page that we have created over here.
Yes.
Base. Okay, so we have to first make it to. Okay, so we have to use export over here before the class
so that
given.
we can, yeah, correct.
So that will become basically public where you can call it inside any other classes. Okay,
Yes.
so we just have to now you can basically see that a base page which we have imported, right? Now this constructor will start throwing you an error. Why? Because it says that okay, you have created a constructor inside a base page, so you also have to because you will be initializing these variables for the page classes. So it says that you basically have to use or initialize the page fixture or the constructor that you have created inside the base page.
We can use the super to directly call the parent constructor, right? Yeah, super page.
Using a
Sorry.
super.
Yeah.
And what we are trying to do over here, we are trying to do the same thing, which is a page fixture, which is a page parameter over here.
But we don't have to specifically construct, I mean,
What
yeah,
we do not have to.
kind of same only. Yeah, that's true.
Right. Right. So you always have to do this. You also have to take parameter over here as a page because you have declared it inside the parent class.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
So Praveen,
so that is
sorry to interrupt, Praveen. So these concepts like extends and this super page for people who are attending first time, I think this is a little bit getting little complicated.
right. Do not worry. Do not worry. You will come to
Yeah.
know. This.
Or maybe
This
is there some kind of you have created some kind of a flow diagram or something to explain the relationship between these things. That would be probably a little bit. Of course, I mean you are explaining very well, but maybe after probably 30 minutes, probably it will be difficult to retain. So if there is some
do
kind of
not worry. For us, there will be another session where you will go through with every concept that you are mentioning over here.
Thank you.
It's just a demo purpose, and we have other session going on. So we have
Thank you.
combined with you people as well over there.
Thank
Okay.
you. It's like a demonstration, basically. Okay.
Right. You'll get all those values. So Chandan, I hope this might have cleared the confusion. It's similar that we are trying to create it inside the page.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So I'll remove this. So generally, why are we trying to take a page over here is to write the locators and call different types of methods that we have inside the Playwright. And that is where we are trying to create a variable which we are assigning with a page. This is coming from the page picture that we are trying to create it inside the page layer over here. Okay. For the new people, I know that you will not be able to relate everything over here. Do not worry. It's just a demo. Just see like how do we create or how do we go through with the framework in our session. We'll be going through in detail again going forward. Okay. So second thing that we have is for a password, let's quickly create that we have already created. So I'm just copy pasting it over here as a password, which is this in terms of here, we have taken a test as a page name, and other is to create a locator for also writing or initializing the login button over here. So we can simply say it as this dot test dot whatever the value that we have put in. Now we also have to perform for error message, and then we'll also have to do for home page identifiers. For home page identifier, we have already written a locator, which is locator dot this one, which will identify the home page. And here we can again say it as this dot test dot locator, and for this we have to create a locator. So in this case, let's move over here and provide some wrong credentials so that it will throw us an error, and that error message we can try to catch it over here inside the locator, which is again this toast container, which is having an ID as a value. So we can ID as an attribute. So we can simply write the locator, which will identify the elements on the web page. How do we write this? Again, this dot test dot locator, and inside this we can write this. So this is the things that we have written inside the constructor, which will be initialized at the time of going through with or creation of an object for login page. Okay. Now, different methods that we require to create. First thing, what we require is we have to launch the URL, right? We also have to launch the URL every time whenever we start execution of any kind of test case, right? So that URL we can store it we can store it basically somewhere. Let's say for now, let's store it inside the test class. I'll say it as const URL equals to this value. Okay. Now we'll create one method over here, which will basically launch the URL. So for that, I'll just give the name as launch URL as a name. And inside this launch URL, we can simply call the method that we are trying to call from the Playwright. And what is that method? Anyone aware of over here?
Go to.
Is right. Goto is a method which will accept a URL which should be in the form of string, so that we can take it over here as a parameter, and wherever inside whichever class we call this launch URL, there we can take this as a parameter as a URL. Okay, there we can take this parameter as a URL inside the goto method, wherever we call this particular method inside this. So let's say we call it inside this one, we'll simply call it by using an object name, and then we can say it as a launch URL, which also accepts a URL. So this URL that we have stored over here, we can pass it over here as the parameter inside the function. Okay. Other also we can create. So I'll create one, let's say a valid login as a method. Inside this valid login method, we can call all the valid login scenario, which will fill the username, fill the valid credential of a password, and then click on login button. So those steps we can call it over here, saying that we have a locator, which is this one. This dot username is identifying our username field. So this dot username, and we have a method inside the Playwright, which is known as fill. Fill method will help us in entering any text value inside the input field, right? So we also have to use a username over here, so that we can take it as a, again, parameter inside the function that we are trying to create. So what will happen is this will become dynamic. Let's say if you provide a URL which is constant over here. So let's say you are directly providing a URL that you have stored somewhere. Example, HTTPS colon something, right? What will happen in this case is whenever you try to run any kind of test case and wherever you call this particular method, it will always take the same parameter over here as a URL. Same URL it will launch every time. But let's say, depending on your scenario, if you want to change it inside any of the test case, or let's say if you want to change depending on the environment, probably you will not be able to change. Even if you change it, this will by default take the URL that you have given over here. Same case for the username as well. If you are trying to hard code the value as a username, whenever you try to call it inside any of the classes, any of the environment, the same username will be applied over there. So that is where we are parameterizing this. We are taking a parameter over here, whichever the value that we require in terms of launching and in terms of filling the username and password. Okay. Again, for the password as well, we can say it as this dot pass. Why are we saying this dot password? Because our variable name is now this dot username, this dot password, this dot login button, this dot error message, and this dot home page identifier. So whenever you have to call it inside the same classes, we have to call it with the initialized value that you have given for a variable inside the constructor. Okay, and then again, we can use it, which will also take a password as a parameter that we can store it over here and take it the parameter. So wherever you call this valid method require a couple of things, which is username and password, right? So that username and password, let's say if you are trying to call it over here inside this login page dot valid login. Inside this, we can provide a username and password as well, whichever username and password that we have to provide. Okay, first we'll see by hard coding all the value inside the test class, and then we'll take it inside the any of the file either by using JSON or Alexa, and then we'll convert that. Then we'll see like how do we call those values from JSON or Excel file.
So there is no XML support here, right?
We do have Excel support as well.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yes. So we can, let's say I'll just copy paste over here, whatever the username and password we have. For now, I'm just trying to store it as a hard code, and then we'll take it inside JSON and Excel later on. Okay. So this is just for a valid we have just filled, and we also have to call the login button as well. So for that login button, we have simply this dot login button that we have stored over here, and then we are saying that click on that login button. In the same way, we can also create another method, which will be for, let's say, invalid scenario, invalid login, which can take, let's say, incorrect password as a parameter. And that we can fill it over here. And inside this again, we can also take incorrect, let's say, password, and that we can say it as @test. Okay. And again, wherever and whenever we call these invalid login method, there we have to take again the two parameters, which is whatever we have to fill it in this case, which is username and password. Okay. But if you see over here, after clicking on login button, we are not trying to do assertion over here. But assertion is a part of test case. Assertion you have to do inside the test case. The test cases. Okay. Now, the concept comes that we this class that you see over here, we have created as a login page. But when you try to create an object anywhere, it is not able to identify that we have also a login page available inside our framework. Because to make it as a public and accessible outside of the folder or outside of the package that you have created, we have a keyword known as export. In terms of a TypeScript, we have a keyword known as export, the same in JavaScript as well. Whenever you make it as export, that means this class becomes public for the other folders and other classes available inside our framework. And now you will be able to see that this will, whenever you try to create an object by saying login page, this is saying that, okay, we have a login page available inside the pages folder inside as a name as a login page. So it has automatically imported this as well. Wherever you have to make it as a public, you have to make it as export. That means basically you can import this particular class inside any of the classes by using an import keyword. Export is to make a public, import is to import that public classes that are available inside our framework. Okay, and you see this.
Praveen, sorry to interrupt. But just one quick question. So all this we call part of creating the framework, or this is the real
framework.
So this is all comes under framework. Okay, thanks.
It all comes under framework, and it is also a real concept that we generally do or work inside the organization.
I see. I thought it was the real test creation part, so that's why there was a confusion. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So in this case, if you see now, we have created an object over here for a valid scenario. And here we have created an object for a login page. Why did we create an object? To access the properties and methods that we have created inside page class, which is inside the login page over here. Whatever the variables that we have created over here, which is this one, whatever the methods that we have created over here, which is this one, how do we access this? We cannot directly access saying that, okay, I have created a launch URL, so I cannot. It is not suggesting us that we have a launch URL as a method. So whenever you have declared inside a class, we have to create an object. And by using an object, we'll be able to call those methods. Now, in this case, we have given a URL inside the launch URL as a method, which is accepting a parameter as URL. Inside this, we have given a username, which is this one, and password, which is this one, as we are trying to call a valid login scenario from here, which accepts a username, password. And after performing the valid login scenario, we also have to do an assertion. That means if you have given a correct credential to log in inside the application, it will help us. Basically, we have to validate whether the login is successful or not. If the login is successful, you will be able to move to the dashboard or home page, wherever it is, our landing pages, right? So that we can say it. We have already created a home page identifier, which will help us in moving or identifying that we are on the dashboard or home page over here, right? So we can simply say it as login page dot this particular variable to be visible. To be visible is one of our assertion method that we have. We have utilized this multiple times, which will help us in validating whether the element is visible on the page or not. Okay. This is for a login, which is valid scenario. I'll run within like few minutes. And then I'll also create one more, which is invalid login scenario. Okay. And inside this invalid, what we have to do is we simply have to call this invalid. Generally speaking, we do not even have to call the invalid login scenario over here. Just wanted to show you that you can create multiples, but you can also utilize this over here. But the naming convention is, it will look like we are trying to do a valid scenario. That is where we have created another method identified as an invalid login test. Here we can call invalid login test, which will again accept a username and a password, which will be an incorrect password over here. And here, when you have given an incorrect password, so it will throw us a message known as error message. And that is what we are trying to do an assertion over here. You should also be having, like few of you definitely will be having few questions that you'll come to know, but let's try to run the test case and see whether it is able to perform the same action that we have earlier done as a part of the random test script. So currently I'm trying to run a valid login scenario. So here we know that we also have to write in terms of a configuration, we have to provide screenshot as on, which will start automatically taking this screenshot. And we have to also provide the video as on, which will start generation of a video recording automatically inside the for the test cases, right? And one thing also you can mention it as, we know that Playwright will by default run the test cases in a headless mode. So we are saying it as headless false. Basically, it is also performing some kind of execution over here. So you'll see like it will launch the browser, whatever the browser that we have given. On that browser, it will start running. So it has filled, it had successfully validated that we are basically on the dashboard page. Let's try to run the second scenario as well, which is for invalid. Okay, and it has also validated that whenever we have given an incorrect scenarios, it has also given us a pass. How do we know that? Let's observe the report that it has again generated in terms of Playwright by default. Whatever the report that it generates in terms of a Playwright is an HTML report, by default it generates over here. So you can see that it says all the steps have been passed, and it has also taken the screenshot that incorrect email or password. This is an advantage of a Playwright where it takes automatically screenshot as well as it has generated the video recording. So you see like it clicked on login and then it generated then it also displays an error message over here. Okay, now this is not a correct way of writing the test case. Whatever we have gone through over here till now is not a correct way. If you see, these creation of an object and launching the URL are same steps inside both of the test case. That means ultimately we are writing a duplicate test case over here, right? We are writing not duplicate test case, but duplicate test step over here, which is creation of an object, launching the URL. And if you see, these two are again the common step for these two test cases as well. These two steps are common. And whenever we have a common steps, we have just understood earlier that we have different fixtures. One of them is known as before each. So what we can do is, whichever steps are duplicate over here and which are common inside all the test case, we can simply take it inside the before each, so that whenever we have to run the test case, before running the test case, whatever we have written inside the before each will run and then execute whatever the test cases are there. Now what I'm saying is these two steps are common, so we can create the object over here inside this. Okay, but whenever you create by using a const or let inside the curly braces, that becomes a local variable. So we can take it outside of the curly braces and define it so that we'll be able to use it inside any other, like anywhere inside your file, anywhere inside methods and any other things. Now, what did we do is we have just removed the duplicate value that we have used earlier. What we have done is we have created an object inside the before each and launched the URL again inside the before each. Before each is a precondition for running your test case. That means whatever you want to run as a precondition for your test case, we can run it over here. Now, when we create a dashboard page later, for a dashboard page, login is a mandatory, right? You have to log in into the application, then you have to perform some action. So that login into the application, also we can take it inside the before each itself, inside the dashboard page. So we have to first create an object and there we have to launch the URL before performing any test case operations and so on, right? I'm so sorry. So that those steps, those common steps that are required for the test case, we have taken it inside the before each. Okay. Now let's again try to run one by one the test case, or you can run at a time also. If you see now, this will again be
Excuse
again
me,
run in the
I cannot see your screen, please. Can you check it, please?
what about others?
We can see, I think you should drop and like rejoin, because if you make the idle screen, it will not see. It'll happen to me. You can drop and rejoin.
It's been
Okay.
long, like, it's like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
you
it's
have
visible for us. It's visible for us.
you have
Yeah,
to drop like that.
Okay.
Because
Okay. I've just reshared it again. Should be visible now.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay. Thank you.
And great. And again, when you try to run this invalid login scenario, you'll see that it will also run in the same way, however it was running earlier. So what generally did over here is whatever the duplicate steps were there inside all the test cases, we have just taken out and said that before each. Before each means whatever you have written inside the before each hooks, this is also known as hooks. Hooks used to be a special type of functions which will run before executing your test case. So every time whenever you try to run your test case, if you have also given before each, this step will run first and then it will go and start running your test case. Again, for this test case as well, this step will run first and then it will execute this step over here. Okay. So any question over here from the like existing batch people, any question that you have to understand what we have
Just
created over here in terms of framework?
one question. This test before step, I think this is unique to Playwright, right? In other tools, it's not
Other
available.
other tools also have hooks concept.
You also have it? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Praveen, this is, the before each is only applicable to this particular page, right? If we are creating a
Yes.
separate test classes, then that
Again,
may
you'll
not be
have to
applied.
use.
Yeah,
Again,
again
you'll
I
have to use before each.
Okay, understood.
So before
One more
each,
question.
okay,
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
before
Sorry.
each, no worries,
Mhm.
no worries. Before each, you will be using inside all the test file.
Right. So I see, in the test class, we mentioned some URL and password and everything here. So is it supposed to come under, especially on the line number 4, URL, supposed to be there in the locators where we are defining the web elements like the login page?
Okay, right. So this I wanted to discuss when we take it outside the outside the classes. But the best practice is you should not be hard coding any value or any data inside your page class. If at all, if you have to hard code your value, that will go inside the test layer. Let's say example, if you are trying to create some data which is only applicable for so and so test case, then you can directly write it inside the test file, those particular data. What I mean to say is, also you will store the data, or you have to store the data only. You have to store the data in any specific file like JSON, Excel, or constant classes only when you are using those data at multiple places. At multiple places means inside the multiple test case, inside the multiple classes, and so on. But if you think that you are trying to use a data which is only specific to one particular test class or only specific to one particular test case, then you can define directly inside those test class as well. Example, this incorrect password is only applicable for login page test. So you can also hard code the value over here inside the test class. But others, if you see, which is username and password, which will be utilized inside many other classes, many other test cases. So that we can take it inside URL, username, and password, that we can take it inside other files, which is like inside JSON or Excel, to drive the data from there. Okay, but incorrect password, probably you will be only utilizing inside the login page scenarios. So we can also hard code it over here. That is, there will not be an issue in that case. That is also one of a best practice that you can follow.
Okay.
We have to put the
The best
data.
the
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, the best practice can be, putting the URL and the password and the string value username should be in a JSON file or Excel, right, Praveen? That's what you
Right,
were trying to
right.
indicate.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. Because these will be utilized inside multiple classes, multiple test case, and so on.
should it not be in the form of a property file, Praveen? Even from property, sometimes I seen that they are declaring the URL and calling the property files, or it should
Similar.
be in a JSON.
It is it is similar. Either you create a properties file or you create a JSON file or Excel file, will be similar things. Same concept.
Okay,
Where do we
understood.
store them? Is it default location, or we can choose the location to store these files?
You can choose the location, but that is where I was talking about a test data layer. Inside that, we can store all the data.
No, but it must be having some physical location, right? In cloud or on your machine.
That again depends inside the organization to organization.
So you can basically configure it based on your needs.
Right, right.
Thank you, Prabir.
Yes, Chandan, go ahead. You were trying to ask
No, I was
some
saying
question.
usually we store this kind of the data into the property file
Right.
because we run the automation, we run on the multiple environment. So URL will change according to the environment as
Right.
the username, password, and everything.
Right. Yes. Yes. So we can store at like any other places. Like you can create a JSON, you can create an Excel, you can create a constant class as well. That means you can create a class, and inside that you can store all the variable, or you can also take it inside the properties file as well. So any file is okay over here to store the data. Whatever is feasible, whatever inside the organization, however the policy that they are following. Some people inside my organization, we used to store it inside the AWS, where we call every time and get the data whenever it requires using a test queue. Okay, like GCP and test queue. So it again depends organization to organization, whatever they are following in terms of storing the data. So that is where it comes like JSON, Excel, properties file, or a constant class as well. That means I create a class, and inside that we can assign all the, we can store all the data.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So that's basically about the login page test over here. Tomorrow we'll see like we'll create for the dashboard page again. In like other sessions, we'll create for the dashboard, and all the data that we have over here, we'll take it inside the JSON and Excel to see how do we drive the data from external files. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
Praveen, can you
about
take
it.
in the code, please?
Yes, yes.
Praveen,
That's
is there any naming convention for this file format? Because here written login page test dot spec dot ts.
right. Generally, if you are not following any other standards, and then you can say it as for your page, whatever the page or class that you are trying to create, login page, dashboard page dot ts. And in terms of test class, we generally it end up with .spec.ts, right? So you can say it as login page test, or you can also create something which is identifiable as a test class. Anyways, it will be identified by just looking into .spec.ts, which says that it is a test file. But you can also say it as login page test.spec.ts, which will give a sense that you have created a login page over here, or login page dot e2e dot spec dot ts.
So that is option dot spec, maybe the right or maybe not.
No,
That is optional.
dot spec dot ts is mandatory to identify it as a test
Oh,
file.
oh, okay.
Okay, right. So that's pretty much about the
One more
session over
question.
here. Mhm.
How you are executing this file?
We have different commands. Currently, I was trying to run with using this, but if you want to run a specific file, then you can use a command known as npx playwright test and space with a path of the file that you are trying to run, which is available inside a test folder, login page test.spec.ts. In this case, both of the test case will run. If you have given it a parallel, then it will then start running in a parallel mode. If you have given in a sequential order, then it will start running in a sequential. So you see, like there are three different browsers have been opened, because by default I have kept it as a parallel and on the three different browsers. So you can see like the test case are running on three different browsers, which is if you see the reports over here, you'll come to know that what is happening in this case. All these two test cases have parallelly run on Chrome, Firefox,
Is
and
there
Safari.
okay? Is there any possibility to add means epic and then user story and their respective tickets, so that it will
Tickets?
generate in we can generate in Allure report sprint
Yes,
sprint number,
yes,
epic number. Is this provision
yes,
same
yes,
provision? Yeah.
yes. You can also write it up. We'll see it again later on for that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so
And one
that's
more
about
thing.
it.
Um,
I'll just come to you. Just give me a
okay.
minute. I'll just come to you. So you are from the new batch, or how is it? Okay. So the existing people, that's it for our session today, and we'll continue again tomorrow with some other topic that we have. Feel free to drop off over here. The new like other people that if you have any question, feel free to ask. I'll stay.
Praveen, I'm having one more question there. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So how can we create that folder structure?
So Ahana, are you for a new batch or existing?
New batch. I am a new.
Okay,
Uh,
okay. You'll come to know. You'll come to know. Do not worry. We have not
okay.
started any session for us, our purpose. You'll come to know all the folders over here.
Okay. Fine. Nice.
Right?
Praveen, so when will the new
Yes.
batch
Yeah.
start?
So there will be a 3 demo sessions, and after that we'll start with. So first demo, then we'll again have a few demo, and then we'll start with our session. Okay.
Praveen, like,
No, I'll not be combining. We'll have different time tomorrow.
I'm not understanding anything here. So just wanted to make sure.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, Praveen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. That what I just wanted to know. Are you gonna match old batch
No, no,
with the
no.
new batch or something like
No,
that?
no. This will not happen. This was just the first
Because
demo, so we thought of merging over here. This will not happen. Do not worry for that.
but I feel the demo session should be understandable, right? Directly jumping into coding, like we don't understand anything. Like if you are, I mean, if you are new to this automation,
Right.
yeah,
You'll
that's what I
you.
feel.
This was just an advantage that I was trying to show you in our demo session. You'll come to know the other things as well. There are like couple of demo sessions are still left out. There you'll come to know what are the exact things that we'll be going through, along with the
Oh,
some concept over there.
okay, okay. Because we need to take decision based on this demo session, right? If it is
Exactly.
understandable, then we'll go ahead with the course.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
you'll come to know all those
yeah.
things. We
Today it's
still have
completely over my head. Yeah,
right. We
yeah.
still have couple of demo session left out, so there you'll understand and we'll come to know over things.
Okay,
Okay,
same timing,
Praveen,
right?
we'll
one
come to
more
know.
question. Is that
Will
normal?
inform you again.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, Praveen, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, this
Shiva, you are
question
trying
is,
to ask, Sanjay, I'll come to you. Shiva, are
yeah,
you
sure.
trying to ask any
oh
question?
yeah. So for this week is the last week for us, or it'll be like one more. Like we'll cover everything. Jenkins, everything will be covered.
Yes, will be covered in this week. Yes.
And the same timing, you'll start the new batch.
No.
Like next week. Next week is
You
the same time.
next week will be the same timing. But for our week, like our sessions will be different time.
Or different. So if you attend I'm the old batch, right? If I want, can I attend the after the demo, like TypeScript
You
things?
you can just ping in our group. I'll let you know over there.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Okay. Right.
Okay, bye.
Great. So others, feel free to drop the new peoples over here. Others, you can feel free to drop off. We'll again continue in the next session.
Praveen, just
So
one
Praveen,
New peoples, whoever have joined today, stay back over here, and others, feel free to drop over here.